The last element of our steel structure is the decking and the concrete that goes on top of the decking, and that's all part of a composite system, which is the floor system. So let's go ahead and go to architecture, and we're going to use an architectural floor here. And we get a little bit lucky because Revit by default has a 3-inch lightweight concrete on a 2-inch metal deck by default. If we edit the type here, you can see that the total thickness is 5 inches. We have a structural metal deck with concrete filling that. We're going to hit OK here. And this is just like a normal floor. So I'm going to go into a level 2 structural plan. And I'm just going to create based on the edges of my structural system. So I don't want it to go all the way out beyond the envelope. And there are different ways to do this, and again, this class is not necessarily going into those sorts of details, but I'm just using the perimeter of my structural system, and I'm going up to the perimeter of my concrete system. So here I'm going to hit check, and now you can go back to the 3D structure, and you can see that I placed that on the wrong floor. The easiest way to do this is to go to the parameters and make sure this is on level 2. And it has a 0 height offset, and you can see it'll jump up to the top there. So this is nice. We need to check a couple things though. So to explain how metal decking works, I went ahead and I made a section here, and you can go create sections in the view and in the section button. It's not necessary right now, and I'm going to go to that view, and then we can maybe see what's happening. So here you can see that I've turned my detail level to fine, and that allows me to see the decking. Now if I double click this in a structural view, so let's edit this boundary, and I change the span direction here to be perpendicular to what it is, you can see that when I go back to this section, now it looks a little bit different, and this is actually the correct direction that we need. Now we're not going to see a ton of difference between, let's say, a medium and a fine, but when we go to coarse, we can understand the diagram of this a little bit better. We have a beam, a hollow beam here. We have a floor which spans 5 inches, and then we have these joists which have a top and a bottom chord. Let's go back to the structure here, and let's see how we can modify these things to be in the right place, because if you look here or if you look in the section, they're all sort of being absorbed. I'm going to change this back to a medium detail level, and what we need to do is, rather than adjusting the floor to sit on top of this stuff, we need to change this so it's sitting actually a little bit below the floor, and that has to do with the fact that our level is here. It is at the top of this floor, and that's our finished floor, and we need to keep that where it is. We can't have it above that level. So the way you go ahead and do this, the quickest way is, if you have a beam system, you can go over to your properties after selecting the beam system and change the elevation by a negative value of what the thickness of your floor is. Now, there are more elegant ways to do this, but I think this is probably the easiest way. You can also select individual beams and do this. Now, don't use the YZ offset. We just need the Z offset value. So rather than the start level and end level, what we're going to do is we're going to change the Z level offset. I'm going to change it to -5 inches here. And you can see that this beam has been successfully moved down, and when we go back to that section to see what's going on, let's change it back to a coarse. You can see that these beams these joists are holding up this floor, and this floor these joists are being held up by a beam which ends, well, see, this is the back beam, so we actually have to do it for all of the beams, and the fastest way to do that is to right click. If you've got all your beams the same, you can right click and you can select all instances visible in the view. You can also sort of filter them out, so you can check none, and then we can use our structural framing actually we just need the structural framing, the girders, and then we can shift click all of the things that we don't need and shift click this stuff. And this way we can select all of our beams if they're different, and we need to change their offset by the same distance. So now we can collectively change it to -5 inches, and all of them will be offset by 5 inches.